Welcome to this Nintendo Everything review. As usual, our reviews will be sensitive to spoilers so that you don't have to worry about having anything truly significant spoiled. Everything that I will be talking about will not be anything that, in my opinion, will significantly impact the experience you have with the game. Let's dig in. Take a look at this footage of a standard skirmish in the online play of Splatoon. Hiding in ink to avoid enemy fire, following the ink trails of an enemy to position yourself for a surprise attack, popping out to try and cash in on that setup, failing to hit them, covering the ground with ink to create a safe escape for yourself later, and then ultimately getting surprise attacked by Jose Otero of IGN because he's stupid good at this game. This situation isn't an exceptional occurrence in Splatoon. Jose Otero will play with anyone and everyone who's online on launch day, so look out. Online matches in Splatoon are filled with moments like this where you're tasked with conducting a whole lot of gameplay mechanics synchronously against another team of players doing the same thing, and then having that symphony of all those gameplay elements determine the winner of the match. Keep that in mind because we're going to come back to it. The online play of Splatoon is the first thing the game asks you to try. It's limited to just one game mode at first, with only 2 maps available at a time, and teams are locked at 4 versus 4. No more or fewer players are acceptable, and the match will not start until the lobby is full, leaving you stuck for a set amount of time unless you want to restart your console. Being that only people with review codes had the game while I was playing it, waiting for online lobbies to fill up proved somewhat time-consuming, which resulted in my playing an inordinate amount of Squid Jump. It's nice of them to give you something to do while waiting, though. When playing the primary online game mode, Turf Wars, which is the only one available to you until a certain rank is reached by a percentage of the community, your team's goal is to use one of a variety of weapons to cover as much ground as possible with colored ink, and whichever team has the most ground covered when the timer runs out wins. This rule set is coupled with 2 core gameplay abilities that you have as an Inkling. 1, you can turn into a squid and dive into your own ink to move faster, climb walls, or camouflage yourself. And 2, you can use the gamepad to view the battlefield and super jump to teammate positions by tapping them on your map. Additionally, you can see a layout of the entire map on the gamepad overlaid with every bit of ink that's been sprayed by both teams. The genius of how these mechanics work together is not easy to overstate, which is to say that it is easy to understate, which is to say that it's very genius. Situations arise time and time again during the course of a 3-minute match that are densely packed with gameplay dynamics, and this gives the entirety of Splatoon's online mode a really palatable richness and intensity. This is what leads to situations like the one I described at the beginning of this review. If you get into a skirmish during an online match, instead of just shooting while moving back and forth or maybe ducking, you have a variety of options. You're shooting while ducking into your own ink to hide, while trying to make sure your ink doesn't get covered up by enemy ink, while trying to cover up enemy ink so they can't hide or run, and so on and so forth. Situations where lots of things are working in tandem are so plentiful that I could add an extra 20 minutes to this video review listing off various gameplay dynamics like this that I love. But then this video review would be 20 minutes long, and I might be okay with that, but that's pretty long for a video review about a game with squids. Squids do not deserve that much time. This all sounds pretty intimidating, you might think. What if I'm not very good at video games, and I don't like doing a whole lot of things at once, and my brain just can't handle so many design elements working together? Herein lies yet another one of Splatoon's many talents. When you first start playing, the amount of strategy you employ when using, like, the gamepad, for example, it only goes so far as to ask, where is the evil green ink? And then you tap the player closest to the evil green ink, and then you shoot to the evil green ink, and then you cover the evil green ink. A few matches after that, you might look at the gamepad and notice, hey, one of my teammates is making a break for the enemy spawn point. Maybe if I wait a second, instead of jumping right away, I can jump to them and then be really deep in enemy territory and cause some real damage. So you've learned yet another possible use of the strategy of the gamepad. The strategies reveal themselves organically, and the amount of depth at your disposal is astonishing, and not just regarding the gamepad map and super jump function. Level navigation, skirmishes, power-up weapons, and the stealth mechanics are all thick with this kind of intricacy that reveals itself without intimidation or tutorials or any of that. You just figure it out yourself naturally. Additionally, battles play out at a very breakneck pace as well. Because of the nature of the game, it's never really possible to get complacent because your enemy is always covering up your ink somewhere. There's always something to be done, somewhere that needs help, someone that you can jump to, some weakness you can try to exploit. Your brain is operating at 200 miles an hour for the entirety of the 3-minute match, so you can imagine that coupled with the depth of the gameplay elements, this becomes incredibly involved and incredibly exciting. Add on top of this some really satisfying splooping sound effects, and the fact that covering lots of things with shiny, messy ink is just gutturally satisfying, sort of like knocking over a child's sandcastle, and you have a recipe for a multiplayer mode that's as addicting as it is satisfying, as it is exhilarating. This excitement, however, is left only almost fulfilled rather than completely realized at every moment. Designing a game with such a dedication to creating strategic excitement really breeds the desire for communication. Being able to taunt in some fashion, or say good game, or tell your teammates to super jump to you because the enemy is taking a lot of territory somewhere, things like that aren't vital because it's an industry standard, they're vital because the game feels like it wants to have that level of communication. Everything in the design is built to make you want to communicate at so many points in time, and yet there's no acceptable way to do that. The only other thing worth mentioning for the sake of practicality is that Splatoon's online mode is not designed to be played with friends and actually has obnoxious barriers put in place to discourage such camaraderie. The only way to play with a friend is to have one person join a public match, hope that there's an empty spot in the crew, and then have the other friend join via the play with a friend option. This process will likely become exponentially more difficult the more friends you want to play with, as you have to then pray for more and more empty spots, but on top of that, the game does not allow you to choose to leave a lobby once you've entered it without turning off the console. If you get into a lobby that doesn't have enough empty slots for all your friends, well, too bad, Charlie. Turn off your console, try again, or play a match with random people. And on top of that, you can't change your weapon class without exiting your match lobby. So if you or a friend wants to switch classes, you'll effectively have to start this whole friend gathering, connecting up process over again. It's somewhat baffling to me that they'd even include a join up with a friend option at all in this case, when the rest of the game seems to discourage that notion so strongly. Maybe they were just trying to taunt you or something, I don't know. The first thing you see when you click the Splatoon icon on your Wii U is a clue to how the game will look and feel from there on out. A garage rock drum beat plays and you see a 90s teenager's bedroom with inky footprints leading out the door. Why does this teenager have inky footprints on his carpet, you might think? Won't that be difficult to clean out? Well, it depends what the ink is made out of, but that's not important. This ink-splashed bedroom serves as a pretty good introduction to, at the very least, Splatoon's presentational style. The game's iconic visual approach is simultaneously messy and clean. It's cleanly messy. And it's derived from the culture of the early 2000s pop-punk movement, or wherever it was the Blink-182 came from. Characters say fresh a lot, yes or no option boxes are replaced with some analog for yeah and nah, there's graffiti taken from Meaver scattered around, and a disproportionate amount of Inkopolis' citizens are wearing very big headphones. It's emulating something sort of punk, just with all of Nintendo's well-known polish added to it, which makes it not really very punk. But it is thorough, and they're dedicated to it front to back, from the alleyways, to the backgrounds of single-player maps, to the online menus, to the shops. Appropriately, the game's audio design mimics this same philosophy of clean messiness. It's quirky and disjointed at times, always either interesting or catchy, and reflects the style of the rest of the game really well. A bedroom splattered with ink, a clean city splattered with graffiti, straight-laced beats splattered with strange bursts of sound. It's like poetry, it's sort of, they rhyme. Let's give one of the game's more fresh tracks a listen to give you an idea of what's being presented. Included in the Splatoon package is a wonderful, fully featured single-player campaign that's straightforward, fulfilling, and effortless. This makes it a lovely companion to the incredibly intense and intricate multiplayer, to the point that you'll often jump between the two modes for hours and hours on end. The single player is structured in a series of worlds with a series of levels. Each level is linear in fashion and has a kind of hidden secret scroll that you can find that sort of fills out a bit of the game's surprisingly desirable lore. I'm not joking either, the lore is silly, but it's really cool. And I think it might have something to do with the fact that one of the guys that made Splatoon kind of has the same haircut as the guy that made Metroid, and Metroid has really cool lore. That's just my theory, though. Each of these worlds is topped off by a simple but enjoyable boss battle. To many, this will sound pretty familiar. It's a whole lot like Super Mario 3D World and lots of other modern Nintendo games. That is to say, this is hardly a throwaway feature, if only to look at all of the dilapidated urban structures the art designers could think to coil and twist around the world, or to listen to the wonderfully disjointed and catchy soundtrack. The mode is worth an entire playthrough, but also in terms of general fun, it's a really great experience. The basic formula for a level is to introduce a gameplay concept, say these sponges that fill up when you shoot them with ink, show you gradually more complicated derivatives of that concept, and then give you a Zapfish reward when you complete the obstacle course that's based around that concept. Fittingly, there are a good number of levels. It felt like somewhere between 20 and 30, I think on the high end of 20, and because of the secret scrolls you can find, many of the levels can be played twice, which lines up a great amount of fodder for relieving the wonderful stress of multiplayer. It never pushes you too hard. The only level I would have found satisfyingly difficult in a vacuum was the final boss, which is incredibly enjoyable, and there are a lot of safety precautions and checkpoints in place to make sure the ride is smooth and lacking in any sort of frustration or real challenge. So being paired with such an intense multiplayer mode is perfectly perfectly suitable, and it acts in great harmony. The music is good, the visuals are really neat, the levels are fun and easy, and the little Zapfish buddies are cute. Plus, if you beat a level that you've already beaten before, you get a little stuffed version of a Zapfish, and then your little person pats it on the head like it's a cat. What more do you need? Now let's talk about the game's structure and how all its different bits are tied together. Splatoon has a whole lot of stuff that goes against the conventions of popular shooter design, which has given some people a bit of pause. It only ships with 5 multiplayer maps, I can only access 2 at a time per mode, there's no way to create private lobbies to play with friends. These things all sound a little bit weird and are probably going to give a lot of people a certain bad taste. Some of these strange structural choices are unfortunate, like the aforementioned lack of friendship features, but others just end up working to sort of flavor the game's pacing. It's a little bit like Animal Crossing in a way. The available maps for online play change every 4 hours, the inventory at the various shops cycles daily or something like that, maybe it's every 12 hours, I don't know. New free DLC is going to be released every week or two, supposedly, and new modes and features will come every few months, supposedly. So you play for a couple hours and then you take a break and then you think, you know, I bet the map cycle. I might as well turn it on and play a little bit longer. And then you lose four more hours of your life. And then you take a break, you go to sleep, and when you wake up, well, yeah, you might as well check what new clothes are available, right? You might as well. You might as well just turn it off for another minute, play a couple of matches, and then 4 more hours are gone from your life. And then later you remember, hey, I think they released new maps. I should get on that and check those out. And so you go on, just play a few matches, and then 4 more hours of your life is gone. And so on and so forth. The way content is served to you piecemeal feels a little uncomfortable at first. You know, it's like, I'm a gamer who should be pandered to, and I want something, and you won't give it to me, and now I feel upset. But in the course of playing the game, you start to settle into it. You start to expect and appreciate the charm of having to wait 20 seconds for battle stages to be revealed, when at first it might have been frustrating. All of this only works, of course, because the core design of what you're doing is so fun. It's not as though the game is trying to coax you into cleaning a stinky bathroom for 3 hours by offering you new clothes to look at or new battle stages to play on. You want to play the game anyway, so the structure is just sort of like a nice friend reminding you that you bought a jetpack, and hey, if you want to use it, it's right over there on your Wii U. And so Nintendo's electric squid experiment succeeds, passing by the finish line with neon flying colors, probably while wearing a basketball jersey and big headphones. I'm very sorry about that sentence. The minor gripes, which in light of everything else are not petty but are minor, about the lack of friend support don't hold much ground when you're voraciously painting skate parks and warehouses, yelling profanities or your analog for them at the TV, taking a break to play a wonderfully smooth and strange campaign, and then going back to fight online for hours and hours and hours on end. Splatoon covers nearly all its bases as far as creating an addicting show for an intensely deep and competitive gameplay anatomy. It doesn't skimp on layering an eccentric and polished aesthetic over that, and ingeniously paces its content to keep you returning as often as you can. So pretty much top to bottom, every part of Splatoon is a dance between polished comfort and excited brilliance, not unlike a bedroom splashed with neon paint. Its moments of genius are plentiful, and everything about it is wholly memorable.
Rated everyone 10 and up.
I said that a lot like Jeff Keighley. Because of all the things I just said, Splatoon gets an inky thumbs up. Get it? Inky, because there's ink. The separation between the buy it now crowd and the buy it in August crowd when the update to add friend features comes out is pretty easily distinguished. If you can deal without being able to reliably, you can, just not reliably, play with a group of friends until August, there should be no hesitation whatsoever. Everything about the game except those minor missteps with online features is completely thoughtful and startlingly deep, and the single player experience, especially that final boss, is really not to be missed either. Still, there's no doubting that you'll get a slightly more complete game in August. I don't think it'll be that much more fun than it is now, because it really couldn't be, but if you're picky, it can't hurt to bide your time just a little bit longer. I hope you enjoyed this review of Splatoon. Please go to NintendoEverything.com because it's a great website. I have a separate YouTube channel. There's a link in the description if you want to find that. And go buy Splatoon because it's really cool. Or actually, don't necessarily buy it. Read the review, which you just listened to or whatever. Yeah, that's it. Stay tuned to the website. Follow us on Twitter. Click us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. I don't think we have one of those. Bye.